Hey, it's Macabre Derek with another RPG rant. This time we're going to be, venting, no shows, and lacking respect. Let the rambling begin. So, tonight, I ended up having a scheduled game that somewhat fell through. And this has become a notorious problem with this specific group. There's a few things that I wanted to cover, but mostly this is just therapy for me. Okay, this is just gonna be me venting because this is extremely pissed me off. Let's start off with the reason why. So it's me and the GM. GM, good for the most part. Few things that I would like to end up seeing developed, but you want to know what? I love the games. And keep in mind, I'm not a huge fan of the series that they're following. So the fact that I'm looking forward to this every single time, and then suddenly a whole bunch of players don't even tell us they're not going to be there. No, they just don't show up. And this is painful. This is just painful to end up watching because you're sitting there and you're going, look, I'm here to have a good time. You're here to have a good time. But the second that they don't show up, the only thing that's on your mind at that point is why the fuck didn't these people show up? And worse yet, most of them didn't even give notice. Some of them was last minute notices. Now I know that things happen in real life, but attendees for this particular game have been shifty at best. And this is despite the GM's contribution. Now, the things that a GM can do, that I'll discuss on another point in time. Maybe I'll put some hints into it in this video, but what I really want to end up focusing on is the players. Now, if you're not enjoying the game, completely possible, right? We're not always fit for every single session, every single RP, and every single group. You know, sometimes things just don't gel. That's fine. But if you're not interested, say you're not interested. Okay? Don't waste your time. I'm talking to you as a player. Yeah, coming over to a game that you're not really interested in, that you're going to spend 90% of it on your phone playing Fallout Shelter or something like that. Maybe Angry Birds, I don't know, whatever's trendy at this point in iOS games. Don't care. What I do care about is the fact that you're not here. At least internally, you're not here. Or you just don't show up, but then you don't bother explaining anything. Now, last minute appointments happen. We do know that. But if you're a player who shows up to 1 out of every 3 games, you're going to have a bad time. I'm going to explain why. As an ST, my job is trying and making sure that everybody else has a little bit of fun along the way and build a coherent storyline. It's pretty hard to build a coherent storyline around people who aren't there. And when people come in and say, well, how about if we just say my character was doing this? Like, how about no? You know, if you were interested in doing this, how about you show up next week and do it? That would be a nice little change of pace, wouldn't it? Because oftentimes when these players end up coming in, they want to state that they were doing something that typically in their mind is more interesting than what they would have been doing. And the sad truth is it is more interesting than what they would have been doing, because what they would have been doing is sitting back in the background doing absolutely anything they could to just avoid attention. If you weren't interested in playing, don't sign up. It's that simple. It saves your time. It saves the GM's time. The GM has enough to worry about. The ST has enough to worry about. The flame tender has enough to worry about other than you and not showing up. Your time should be more valuable to you than to come into a game half-heartedly, unprepared, not really willing to end up participating, and then all of a sudden not showing up. Now, I get it. Maybe the game's not for you. But if that's the case, what are you showing up for? Because the time you are showing up could be better spent elsewhere. The GM could be spending their time with the players who want to be engaged, that want to see where the story is going, that want to participate, And they don't want to have to end up sitting there trying to figure out what side plot can I do for this character to bring them back into the fold when they know that as soon as they do, you're not going to be there next week. It's just a sad truth. What this is a complete lack of respect. I find it as a complete lack of respect for the other players. I find it as a complete lack of respect for the GM. And I find it as a bit of personal lack of self-respect. I'm going to talk about my own game for a minute, just as a chaser shot to that. One thing I end up asking from my players, and one of the most frustrating answers I can get, is how did it go? What did you think? And then go, oh, it's fine. It's fine means that everybody is comfortably uncomfortable. There's something that could be done. There are things that could evolve from this. There are things that could build up. But nobody wants to end up saying anything because they're afraid to hurt feelings. You know what hurts feelings is to know that we are stuck in the same level, and this game is rated a 3 out of 10, and you'd rather keep it at a 3 out of 10 rather than help out the ST improve, or to help out other people improve and try and build it up to a 5, a 6, 7, chasing for that elusive 10 out of 10. I want to play in that 10 out of 10 game, but that doesn't happen if no one's willing to end up giving feedback. But this happens time and time again. And it hurts to know, because reality is when you say it's fine, what the GM hears is it's not worth criticizing, or it's not worth discussing. I'm not worth that time. And admittedly, sometimes, it's fine, passable, it's serviceable. But other times you want to end up building it up a little bit more. I'm going to end up regressing back into the previous discussion, the game that I was supposed to have tonight. And thankfully, my GM tried to end up pulling it off by the seat of their cuff. They tried to end up saying, you want to know what? Screw it. Your character died last week. Let's do a character intro. We're just going to end up spending a little bit of time, and I'm going to introduce you to the 2 or 3 plot hooks that are eventually going to drag you in with the rest of the party. Sweet. Now I know what I'm all about. This is awesome. But it shouldn't have had to be that way. What it should have been was me already integrating with the party this session. Instead, no one decided to show up because there was no party to integrate. When your side character is participating more than the main characters, you have a problem. Now, let's think about this for a minute. Just 1 minute. Okay, you got this situation locked in your brain? It's right there? Okay. So, what typically does this mean? Well, speaking as a GM, 1, the players aren't proactively making time for this to happen, which means that they're just not interested. Okay? Something you have done isn't drawing their attention. Why? Right? This is where you as a player need to end up stepping up. This is why I said that feedback was so important, because if the GM is not making it as interesting for you as you'd like it to be, if you're finding your interest is waning, that needs to be talked about. This is a social contract we're in. And part of that is being sociable, trying to end up expressing what it is you want out of the game, what is the GM's trying to do, and trying to find that common ground that you can share, and you two can have, or 3 or 4, can end up traveling along this journey together and be able to tell some fascinating stories along the way. The second thing that might be an issue is that you're tied up in a game that you just honestly can't make. That sucks. It really does. But if that's the case, don't stay in that game. It's harsh, yeah, but what it also is realistic. If you have a fluctuating schedule, work it out with your GM that say, Don't build it about me. I'm a guest appearance NPC, basically. I come in with this character. We got to work on some backstory that explains why my character only pops in every now and again. And then it's kind of a special treat when, hey, I get to role play with you guys and it's all good. But, I'm not the main focus of the story. As a GM, you might be able to take that character and say, you want to know what? When they end up showing up, I'm going to end up making this plot that is about them. They're that side story that ends up moving in. And these side stories keep happening around this character. Sweet. Why not? Right? And it helps progress your own plots. It helps progress the characters' plots. But at no point can the entire arc be about them. You have to come in with that level of understanding, but that also needs to be expressed to your GM from the start. If it isn't, and you're afraid of, again, hurt feelings, or you don't want to make it sound like you have split loyalties or whatever it is that's your personal hang up, look, you're doing more damage by not communicating with your GM. I can only hope that by the end of it, that these players at some point look in themselves and try and figuring out what it is that they want. If they want to play in this campaign or another, they need to express it. If they want to continue in about with things, they need to end up showing support to their ST. The ST, on the other hand, you need to end up supporting your players, but that's, again, another video. But at the end of the day, you kind of have to be an acting troupe. You're all in it together. And if you're not, well, that's how games start to shift and crumble. I'll leave you with this final thought. You get what you give. If you give your GM your time, the effort to end up inserting some interesting facets of a character that you both are a fan of, some angles that they can use for plot hooks, and a personality that just draws the attention of the room and makes everybody go, oh man, I love this character, you're going to have a great time. If you're not doing any of these things, why are you here? And I don't mean that sarcastically. I want you to ask yourself, why are you here? If you enjoy the game, be in it to win it. And I don't mean by winning the RPG, we beat the final boss. I mean in it, in the world that has been handcrafted by your storyteller, your GM, your flame tender, whatever you want to end up calling them, specifically for your enjoyment. And give that feedback. Communication is what makes or breaks groups. And if you're not communicating, well, that's when it all crumbles to dust. If you ended up enjoying this, feel free to press the like button. If you want to end up following more RPG rants and random videos that I like to do, end up hitting the subscribe button. And if you have a topic you want to discuss, ask the questions in the comments below. I always keep an eye out for them. So, until next time, Macabre Derek, RPG Rant.